Well, hi, folks. What an opportunity this is. I've had the privilege of interviewing a lot of good Mindster people over the years, but I tell you what, our interviewee today is absolutely amazing. You're not going to believe what this woman's done, uh, but you'll hear about it in due course. I'm delighted to be able to finally get an interview with Geraldine McFaul. She's just extraordinary. So, welcome to the interview, Geraldine. I know that you like to be called Jed, so I hope if I could continue to do that, I'd appreciate that.
Yeah.
So, Jed, welcome. I'm really grateful for you giving us your time.
Oh, what an introduction. I feel a bit pressure now.
So, so no pressure at all. So, tell us a wee bit about your Mindstore pedigree. People just sometimes like to know about that.
Yeah. I don't even remember who it was, but somebody suggested going along to your sessions. It probably was the mid 90s, because although I'm born and bred Glasgow, I had worked for 3 years down in Birmingham. So it
Yeah.
was after I had come back up. So it must have
Okay.
been maybe 95, ninety
Okay.
six, something like that, in the
Okay.
concert hall. Full big
Nice.
concert hall, and
Yeah.
you were there doing it, and it was 2 day sessions. It was all
Right.
day
Okay. Yeah.
Saturday and all day
Yeah.
Sunday,
Got you.
and I don't remember how many, but over the years I have dipped in and out of
Yeah.
Mind Store in
Yeah.
that sort of setting, and also in the more recently in the Central Hotel in Glasgow,
Yeah.
sort of
Yeah.
the more condensed versions,
Yeah.
and I think probably like a lot of people, to be honest, and I've said this to you before, I've dipped in and out of it. And I've
Of
come
course.
away full of enthusiasm and full of, yeah, I'm going to do this, and it lasts 2 or 3 weeks and it works. But there are things that I have always recognised that I've used it over the years.
Yeah.
Parking is a dream, and my friends just hate it. Whenever
Yes.
I'm driving, I'm always parked right outside the door, right
Yeah.
where we need to be. Every second. How do you do it? I don't know. It just works. So that is one thing that's firstly, and also the story that I'm going to tell you. I did use a bell jar. And that wasn't deliberate, but I realised that
No.
I was using the bell jar
Wow.
sometimes.
Wow.
So obviously it's ingrained in me somewhere, even though I wasn't very good at practising all the time.
Of course, of course, people may remember. I used to joke about car parkers in the courses.
Well, I'm one of them. It works every time.
Fantastic. So, and of course, you were instrumental in getting involved in making sure that we did the retreat back in the start of the summer, and you
Yeah.
participated in that. We'll hear about that later, but I was ever so grateful
Okay.
for that. Um, so, Jerry, tell us a wee bit about your kind of backstory, a wee bit about your life generally. Then we'll move into this extraordinary story.
Okay, so I'm born and bred in Glasgow, as you can hear, and
Yeah, like
although
me.
people often say that I don't really sound like a proper Glaswegian, I don't know what that's supposed to be,
Yeah.
but yeah, and I grew up north of Glasgow, sort of big family, youngest, so the most stubborn probably. And I went into, over the 3 years, I think it changed name from Glasgow Tech to Glasgow College to Glasgow
Oh
Caledonian
yeah, yeah, yeah,
University.
yeah, yeah.
And I did a degree in risk management. So
Okay.
that was back in 87. And in 1987, there was no one in the UK with a degree in risk management. We were in first year, and by that time, there was a third year studying. So they were then going to graduate the following year. So it was a brand new thing. I
Yeah,
had no idea. No, nobody else in the course had any idea what risk management was.
yeah, yeah.
So yeah, I've been a risk consultant then for the best part of 30 years for a big insurance company,
Yeah.
and primarily with local authorities, advising local authorities right across the board on risk management, delivering training, risk assessment, the sort of, and I left there 2018 with no plan, but I just had enough, needed to get out.
Yeah.
And actually, in hindsight, what that did was give me a good couple of years with mum, who already had just been diagnosed with dementia. And
Okay.
again, in hindsight, it was a good 2 years before she went into the care home and then was locked down through COVID. But yeah, so that's been and 2021, I started freelance risk management again. But
Okay.
so I've been working kind of part time over the last few years. dipping in and out of it. So that's my career really. But adventure-wise, I've done various adventures in my adult life. The first big scary one really was cycling London to Paris. And I was so scared cycling London to Paris, I got a 20-week training plan. And on that 20-week training plan, if it said on a Tuesday I had to do 22 miles, on a Tuesday I was doing 22 because I thought if I don't do these 22 miles, I'll never make it to Paris. I trained hard and I was in Team Tortoise for the 5 days that we cycled. And the others that were in Team Tortoise, we naturally fell into a little team at the back. None of them had done any training. So I trained hard to get into Team Tortoise. But I did the same distance as everybody else. So,
and so just for I know this, but maybe the watcher doesn't, or the listener, that you are into adventures. That's a big part of you, isn't it? Can you say a wee bit about how you get into the idea of adventuring? How that came about? That's quite interesting because most people probably don't know there are adventurers,
I don't know whether I'm an adventurer or I'm just mad or I just like going and doing things that are not the same. Doing things that are not the same as everybody else. So that 2012 was a big mental and physical challenge. Somebody else had cycled London to Paris and I knew that they'd had struggles and so I thought, well, I wonder. And so that was the first big thing really, and it was massive for me. But since then, it was around 2015, maybe before that even, I had come across a bloke. I'd met him. He was doing speaking at a charity event. A bloke called Dave Cornthwaite, who was what you would call a professional adventurer, and he was doing 25 journeys over the course of his lifetime, each of 1,000 miles by non-motorised means.
Wow.
So he's done 15 of those journeys so far, and he's still going to work on the rest. So I had come across him and followed him, and then got an opportunity to sail with him on one of his 1,000 miles from Miami to the Cayman Islands. So that was 2014. Did that trip and met a woman, Erin, from Chicago. And she and I was up the mast, having a great time, going up the top of the mast. And she was saying, I would never do that. And I said, yeah, but you jump in the water and go swimming. I would never do that. So we both challenged each other. So off the back of that trip, Erin and I walked from Cardiff to London via Gloucester and then the Thames Path, camping and carrying our stuff. And then 2018, we walked between the 7 cities of Scotland, from Inverness to Aberdeen down to Dundee, Perth, Edinburgh, Stirling, Glasgow. So that's really, through Dave, I guess, you then end up with connections. And Dave has set up what we call the Yes Tribe, and it's not a cult. So it's about saying yes more, not necessarily saying yes to everything. And it's not just about physical adventure. It could be folk that want to give up their job or change work or change circumstances, saying yes rather than automatically, I can't do that. And my description is, it's people who say, don't laugh at your adventure ideas. They don't say, you can't do that. Say, great idea. I know somebody who can help. Can I help? Can I, and they give you advice and help rather than, you shouldn't be doing that. So, that's dangerous.
At what age were you when you first sort of had this notion of becoming an adventurer?
Well, I don't even think I am an adventurer. I think I do adventurous things, but I'm definitely not.
I think compared to the ordinary Glaswegian, you're definitely an adventurer.
Taking it to extreme. I honestly, that cycle from London to Paris was my first real
and what age would
physical
you have been at that
challenge. That was 2012, so I think I was sort of late 30s, early 40s.
Okay, so still relatively young. But how did you find the time for it? I mean, I'm interested in that because clearly, was it just you took your annual holidays and fitted it all in?
Yeah. So those walks with Erin was 22 days. So with
Yeah.
weekends and things, and that
Okay.
was a 3-week holiday.
So when you
So
did the 7 Scottish cities, you would have
hmm
walked and camped, presumably. Is that how it worked?
yes, although we
Okay.
didn't camp quite so much that second trip because I think we were a wee bit older and a wee bit tireder, and we
Yeah.
did end up packing up our tents in Aberdeen and being.
Oh,
But we were what I call kind napped along that journey as well, where people were helping us and taking us in.
yeah. This is a
But
wonderful
yeah,
word you've come
camping
up
on
with.
most of our
Ki-
trips.
Kind napped. It's a lovely idea. Um, so, so for the audience who hear Geraldine here, Jed is a Glaswegian, extraordinary Glaswegian, who's a bit of an adventurer. But then this, as I know the story, but or I don't know the full story, I just know parts of this, is so an idea comes into your mind to do something that very few people would do in a lifetime, an extraordinary journey, especially if I can say this, that one of the things that I enjoyed as a child, youngster, would be I lived in Cumbernauld, so you could walk up to a place called Dilliter, over the fields and up over the hills, and you ended up at Antonine's Wall. And it fascinated me that I could be playing around there with my pals, and that Romans would have somehow or walked there 2,000 years before or whatever long
Yeah.
it was, and to build that thing. So maybe I'm giving a wee bit away here, but this extraordinary idea comes into your head. A woman from Glasgow has this idea. Tell us a wee bit about how it came in, and then how it all started to sort of take over.
Unfold. Yeah, so that idea, I didn't look for it. I wasn't thinking, I don't remember particularly what I was thinking about. Sitting in the living room just through there,
Yeah,
and this idea was, I've never been to Rome. Fair enough, I could have got up the next day and booked myself a flight.
aye,
But the following thought, genuinely, the next thought that came into my head was, one day I'll walk there.
wow,
And it was such a stupid, ridiculous idea, like you just said. It is a stupid. I didn't tell anybody. I didn't even tell Erin when we were on those walks. I
yes,
did not tell anyone for 2 years that I was going to walk to Rome one day. I didn't know when it was going to happen. And actually, 2016 was the year that Mum had been diagnosed with vascular dementia. So obviously, I hoped that it would be a long time before I ever thought of doing. And I didn't really do any planning or anything because it was just this thought, and that was
yeah,
it. But it never really went away. It was just always there. And by the time I started to talk about it, I suspect I've not spoken to Erin about it really deeply. She's in Chicago, but
yeah,
I wonder whether I probably started to talk about it in 2018 when we were walking. But by the time I told people about this walk to Rome from home, not from Canterbury, like that's what ordinary people do, I had 2 rules. One was I am not carrying a rucksack.
yeah,
And I've already alluded to that carrying a
yeah,
rucksack is physically and mentally tough. I
challenging,
am
yeah,
not carrying a rucksack, and I am not going over the Alps. I don't do hills. I get out of puff really easily. I am not going over the Alps. I'm going to find a way of avoiding the Alps. And that was it. That was the planning that went. That was,
I mean,
my.
can I just say to people, so there's this lady that lives in Glasgow, and she's thinking, I'll walk from Glasgow to Rome. I mean, arriving in Rome, I've been in Rome a few times, the weather's always wonderful. I've been in Glasgow lots of times, the weather's rarely wonderful in terms of comparison. So you're going to walk through Scottish weather down into England, somehow or get across the channel and start this. I mean, that's massive. It's massive. I can only imagine that for most folks, the doubts would be coming in immediately. But I couldn't for this reason. But I couldn't. And you've already decided you're not going to have a bag and you're not going to go over mountains. So what did you do? How did it even come about that you got the equipment, or did you plan it? Did you make phone calls? Or was it just, I'm going to walk and see what happens?
I mean, this whole thing just sounds like some stupid, mad, you know, 'cause honestly, there wasn't much planning went into it. So by fast forward from 2016 to 2022, so
Yeah.
April 2022 was when Mum passed away, the day after my birthday. And the night before Mum's funeral, 2 weeks later, I received a mum, a dad, a 3-year-old, and a 6-year-old from Kiev, refugees from the Ukrainian war, to come and stay, which wasn't perfect timing, picking them up at midnight in Edinburgh, you know, the night before Mum's funeral. But actually, it was a good, and I think Mum had a hand in that.
Yes.
It was a good distraction for those 5 months over the summer, having the kids around and busy house. And I camped in the living room when they had the 2 rooms upstairs. And then it was probably about August, September when my friend said to me, we knew by this time that we were going to get them into a flat in Govan Hill.
Yeah.
And my friend said, listen, Jade, she said, your mum's gone. The Ukrainians are going to get settled. This is your time. You've talked about this walk for long enough. Get a date in your diary, make a commitment, and go on your walk. So that was it. We opened the diary. She said, I'll come for the first couple of days with you. And because of that, then we picked the first weekend in May because it's a bank holiday weekend.
Nice.
And it meant that she could walk on the Saturday and on the Monday. So that's as much even as the date randomly sort of got picked. We opened a diary and so it was only from then, I better do some organising then. And I spent some time down because I had seen somebody, Jamie MacDonald, had run across Canada and across America with a child's buggy, just because I think his rucksack had broken and somebody had given him a buggy and he threw his bags. So I kind of had the rough idea that maybe I could push a buggy or something like that.
Of course,
And I went to the pram centre because my idea was go to the pram centre, find the right pram, but then go to Facebook or eBay and find a second-hand pram. Because it doesn't matter that a 3-year-old has trashed it, as long as it's functionally good. So I spent some time in the pram centre in Glasgow. I've never had children, so I've never had to do that before. And the woman was intrigued, and we were going around looking at all the various prams, and there was nothing really. I didn't know what I was looking for, but there wasn't anything suitable. And as I was leaving, I said to the other thing I thought of was these trailers that people have at the back of their bikes. And she said, oh, funny you should say this. She said, mind you, it won't be second hand anytime soon because it's literally brand new and it's only come in last week. And she took me round to another wee bit of the shop that we hadn't been in, and there was a mannequin with a trailer bar wrapped round her waist and this buggy behind her. And the thing was, because Ivanka, we had been walking Ivanka up and down to the nursery, one of the things that I had learned in that summer was I need a handlebar that I could put up and down because I don't want you always be walking like this. I don't want you always. So that was the only thing. I stood behind this handlebar. I could see over the pram. I'm only 4'11", so that's a consideration. And I thought, this is it. I was thinking I might be spending £150 on this second-hand buggy that I was going to buy. This thing was £1,200. So that's not happening. And so I took a note of the company, and I wasn't going to ask them, I emailed them a bit of a brass neck and said, I'm thinking of doing this. Could we get a deal, or could I, good idea. Basically they came back and said, have a nice trip. They weren't interested. And but it was, by this time it was November, and I'd never bought anything on Black Friday before, but didn't an advert come up with this thing for under £400? So it was like it was meant to be, and I thought, I know it's the right thing, I know it's ideal. I didn't really, but it was as good as I was ever going to get. Can I stop you
for a moment? Forgive me for interrupting sometimes, but I do it with the best intention. I mean, one of the wonderful things about MindStore is that when we've got intention, that we attract. And so I just did, so this ad that shows up around about Black Friday, it just showed up, or did you go looking for it, or did it just appear?
No, it popped up.
There you
go.
It
popped up. This company name popped up.
Wow.
And it was it wasn't that company, it was some random
no.
sales. And actually, when it arrived, I thought I had fallen for a scam. Why would you get a £1,200 thing for £400? And I thought they had only delivered the bars. I
Right.
thought, well, more fool you. Why did you think? But it turned out the other half had gone to one of the neighbours across the road, and because it was a huge big box and
Yes,
they didn't want to
yes.
leave it.
Yes, yes.
Yeah,
That's
so that
amazing.
was
Lovely.
so that was the buggy.
Right.
I walked around the block a couple of times with it before I went
Can
on
you
my
just
walk.
describe it for a moment? Because I think,
Yeah.
can you just describe what the buggy actually looked like or what it was? Because I think we'll all have different ideas of buggies. So what was it?
Yeah.
It was, did it,
So the easiest way to think of it, I think, is we're probably all seen people like, out running with their children on three
Yes.
wheel. So and it's got big wheels. It's 16-inch wheels rather than little
Yeah.
wheels. But
Yeah.
it's three, so two at the back and one at the front, and you can walk or run like a normal buggy with a
Okay,
child in
got
it.
you, got you,
But
got
the
you.
difference with this one is that it also had, you could take the front wheel off, and it was a 6-foot metal bar that's got a bit of a shape to it, and it comes up, and there's a waistband, and it straps around your waist,
Got you.
so you can walk or run in front of it with this thing pulling behind.
Okay.
about
So the
6 feet
buggy,
behind.
the buggy part of it, where you'd be able to put stuff in, how big was that? How?
Well, it's a kind of normal, child size buggy. It was full. It could be fully enclosed. It had a
All right,
kind of
cool.
net covering the front
Yeah,
of it
right.
as well, and
Yeah, yeah.
also had a waterproof cover entirely over the whole thing. So that meant that things were secure. I tried to take the straps out, but if
Yeah.
you take the straps out, that takes a bit of the structure away. So that
Okay.
it could still be used as a child's
As a
buggy
child
now.
buggy.
If it,
Got you.
yeah. So, yeah, it's probably easier to see on photos than it is
Yeah, yeah. No worries.
describing. But that 3-wheel buggy running
up.
buggy
Right.
is what it is.
Right, great. So you've now got the buggy. What then starts to happen?
So that, and then I'd gone in and tried on every pair of shoes, walking shoes at Glasgow, because I've got wide feet, and that one of the troubles I had on the 2 walks with Erin was, not so much blisters as tightness to my feet.
Yeah.
So I thought I need to find the right shoes. So I tried on every shoe in Glasgow. I found a shoe and broke them in over the course of over summer in January. And by January, I was thinking, I probably need a second pair because these are not going to last 2,000 miles. So it's an old ski
2,000
instructor.
Forgive me. 2,000 miles. It's mental. But anyway, there you go.
I contacted an old ski instructor who I'd seen on Instagram worked for this company, and I just said, "Is there any chance that maybe they could send me a second pair? And I could break them in now because that was
Yeah.
my thing. I knew I needed to break them in. I could
Yeah.
break them in now. I'll send them to London, and I could swap them out when I get to London.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
they very kindly gifted me that second pair, which was really, really good. And actually, when I got into Switzerland, that second pair were running out, and they again kindly sent me a third. I've still got the third pair. I'm still using the third pair.
Nice.
So the buggy and the shoes and the date. To be honest, that was the planning. Because other than this, I am not going over the Alps, and it was. I didn't spend an awful lot of time, to be honest, even thinking how detailed to do that because I didn't know if I was going to get out of Scotland. So why worry about France? Because I need to get to France first anyway.
Aye,
but my
get there.
basic idea was when I looked at the map, I thought, well, you could turn right before you get to Switzerland, somewhere in France, and go down to Marseille
Yeah.
and Cannes and walk around the coast. Because when you go for a walk down on the Ayrshire coast, it's nice and flat, isn't it? So if I walked around that coastline and into Italy, problem solved. Just avoid the Alps. That was the planning that went into avoiding the
Brilliant.
Alps.
Fantastic. So the morning comes. Well, what
Yes.
happens? How does that actually kick off?
Well, it was a Saturday morning, and obviously friends and neighbours were around, and I was busy, organising the house for house sitters. And a neighbour's son and daughter and son-in-law were going to move in for the 6 months, and so I was kind of organising the house. And they laughed when they came into the house. My head was in the oven. I don't remember the last time I cleaned the oven before that, but for some reason, cleaning the oven,
was
half an
important.
hour before walking was important. So that was kind of funny. But really, Lucy, my friend who had set the whole thing off, and then my niece walked with me for that first day. And the only one thing that I had thought to do was, and as it turned out, I genuinely didn't know this when we opened the diary, it was about 2 weeks later, 6th of May, which was the day I had started, was a year to the day we'd buried Mum.
Oh wow, you
So
weren't even aware of it.
that was a bit, so,
Amazing.
and I had already decided I'm going to walk down, I live in the north end of Glasgow, near Springburn Park,
Right,
walk down to Dalbest Cemetery,
right.
go and see Mum and
Okay.
Dad,
Yeah.
and then you go out the back end of the cemetery, you're on the Clyde walkway,
That's right.
and
Yeah.
head off down the Clyde. So that was my first day was as far as Boswell.
You got to Bothwell.
I got to Boswell, and then actually, I
did you
don't
do
know
in
whether this is
Boswell?
cheating or not, but I had arranged for the first. I thought perfectly good bed back here. Why camp in Glasgow when you can have a good bed in the house? So for the first 2 nights, my friends were shipping me back and forth.
Oh, good
Picking me
idea.
up from Boswell and back, and then back to where I went at the second day. So it was only after the third day then that was me or fully laden. So I hadn't really been fully laden for those first 2 days
Nice one.
either.
Yeah. Makes sense.
But so just thought it was just daft. But I had my tent with me. The idea was to camp, wild camp. I'd wild camped before, but I'd never been myself. And I had never actually made any decision about where to wild camp when I was with other people. It was always somebody else that did that. So that was a whole new thing that I was setting out to do. Worry about it later, see what happens. But I had a friend near Lanark that I stopped with after the third night,
Yes.
and then that was me really on my own from then on.
Wow. And you were following sort of paths that would be designated paths, or were you just finding your own way, or did you have maps? Did you do?
No maps, Google Maps, Google Maps, because I was pulling this trailer,
Of course.
I couldn't go on the West Highland Way
Tight
footpaths.
path. You got you.
So I basically had to always have a pavement or a road. And I decided, Lucy and I had driven down to the borders on that rough route, went over
Yes.
sort of Peebles, Lanark, Peebles,
feel
Selkirk,
for it,
Hoyk,
yeah.
that way,
Yeah.
just to get a sense of the road to
Yeah,
there. And on that trip driving, I realised that I needed to be a bike on the right hand, with the traffic, on the left hand side of the road, walking with the traffic, so that because when you're walking with a rucksack, you walk on the right in the
face
UK,
them.
and you step up out the road when a car's coming.
Aye.
I can't do that. So
No.
I was lit up like a banshee. I had my high vis, I had a big flag, and
yeah.
just prayed that nobody hit me. And they didn't, thankfully.
No,
But
thank God.
so I was effectively following Google every day. I never knew this morning where I was going, how far I was going, where I was sleeping, how I was sleeping. And I was walking from home to Rome, but within days after Lanark, home today A to B was today.
Aye.
Rome was, I don't know. All I need to do is worry about today and think about tomorrow if I get there.
Fantastic.
So that's as much planning, even on the trip, was happening.
I mean, in those early days, was the weather kind, or was you getting?
Generally, it was. Over the piece, I celebrated when it rained, but it was raining, drizzly. It was supposed to rain that first day. It rained a lot the second day.
Okay.
But after that, really, apart from random bits of rain, I didn't have bad weather at all.
Wow.
The two things that were going to kill me were hills and heat, and both of them tried. But yeah.
So you get over the initial hump. You're maybe a weekend or whatever.
Yeah.
Still taking it day by day, not thinking of chucking it at that point, or were you? No doubt you were still going to step by step get there.
I don't. Honestly, people have asked me that a few times over the last couple of years. When we must have thought? I had really tough days. I had lots of tears. Going over the Scottish border and that Kielder Forest is rolling hills, not even the campsies. I was just in bits. How am I going to do any of this if I can't get over these hills. But genuinely, it was never I give up, I'm going home. It was just I just need to work out. Some days I stopped at lunchtime. I've had enough today.
Yeah, yeah,
I'll have a break. I'm going to have tomorrow off. I'm going to.
yeah.
Sometimes I had the next day off. It was just. It never was. I'm going home. It was just. I just need a break, and I'll come back. Sort of get back onto it the next day.
Having a day off, what did that, was that you go into a village and have a cup of coffee, or did you just sit in the hills and watch the view?
Well, see, the bizarre thing is, I was camping often, but actually, even from the day after Lanark, I ended up camping in somebody's back garden because I was too scared to wild camp. I just chapped a door and said, "Can I camp in your garden?" And they said yes. And so by this time, I was already being kidnapped, and I was camping in. I get to the village pub. Can I camp around here? Yeah, you can camp in the village pub garden. Or people would say, well, the pub didn't have a garden. Well, come and camp in my garden. Or some people took me in and had, there's a spare room, come in and have a shower and have your dinner. So I was camping often. But particularly when I was further down and over in Europe, some of my days off were like tourist days. I probably did as many many steps, but at least I didn't have kit and I wasn't under pressure and just wandering. So it was a bit of a mix. Some days I literally just laid out in the tent. If I was staying 2 nights, I could just spend all day chilling in tent or whatever. But other times I was wandering around and seeing places, and so it was all just random.
My goodness. And did you keep a journal type thing, diaries? Were you doing that, or were you just letting it go by?
I wish I had now, because I've sort of succumbed to the pressure of writing a book about it. But I had no thoughts whatsoever, ever, before or since writing a book. What I was doing, because I was being kidnapped, I started to tell these stories and on Facebook and Instagram, and the feedback very quickly was coming back. Oh my goodness, you're restoring my faith in humanity. So I felt a responsibility then to keep telling these stories as they were happening about kindness, big and small. So I've got that, but Middle England, I was meeting up with a lot of friends, and I went to Big Sky that we're going to talk about. So I got distracted by friends and socialising, and so there's big chunks missing along the way as well. So that's why I'm now wishing that I had kept more of a diary. I'm just working on memory.
So, before we go any further, how many days did the walk take? I mean, I would have to say you actually got to Rome. You never chucked it. So, so how many days?
I left home on the 6th of May, and I walked into St. Peter's Square, the Vatican, on the 4th of November. Wow. So I was just 2 days short of 6 months.
My goodness. My goodness.
And yes, I wasn't walking every single day, but I was.
Yeah, I mean, I think lots of us we could probably spend a whole day interviewing you about stories, but I mean, inevitably we've only got a bit of time. Can you think of any?
Sorry.
No, can you think of any highlights of the story? Some of the better, the more inspiring stories or whatever. What would you like to share in the time we've got?
So, one of the questions I was asked once when I was doing a talk with children was a little boy said, "What was your favourite act of kindness?"
Oh, nice.
And I had loads of kindness that I could tell you hundreds of stories about, people taking me in, and the pubs were saying, "This is on the house." But my favourite one, when he asked me that, was I was camping in a church grounds. I had emailed or phoned ahead, I can't remember. It was midweek, so I didn't meet anybody. Camped in the grounds, I had permission. And the next morning, thankfully I was awake 5 minutes before the gardener arrived to start trimming the grass. He didn't seem perturbed by the fact that there was a tent there. No. And so I got myself organised. I came out of the tent, we chatted, and I came away from that chat with this little church gardener with his packed lunch. Because he says, "Hi, sure," he says, "I could go home and make another one. You can't." And I just thought that to me is kindness at its heart. He could do that. So that was my favourite. But would you say that was the smallest act of kindness? Doesn't matter. It just felt lovely. And even just people chatting to me along the way and good luck after saying, "Well, you can't do that, and you're on your own, that's not safe," and "Where's the car?" And but they would always say good luck. And I remember walking away bouncing, thinking, oh, I feel good after people, sort of cheering me on, I guess. And then the big thing was these Alps. And the story goes back to, it was sort of after Peebles. I'll need to sort of look at specifically where it was. A chap stopped his bike to ask me what I was doing because I'm walking with this high-vis vest and whatever. And I had said to everybody, like I've just said to you, and I'm not going over the Alps. No. And he said, oh, what are you going to do? And I'm going to turn right, I'll go round. And instead of everybody else saying, oh, that's a great idea, he burst out laughing. And he says, you do realise that coastline is the Maritime Alps. So it goes from the coast right up into the Alps and back down again and right up. I think I'd still be walking now 2 years later if I had gone that route. So he set me into panic mode I was still in Scotland for 1,400 miles. Am I going to have to go over the Alps? I can't go over the Alps. I'm not doing the Alps. I can't do it. But effectively I had to. So it turns out, and I really didn't look at it until about a week before because I was too worried about it. By this time I was on the Via Francigena, which is the Canterbury to Rome route for West Highland Way type route. So again, I wasn't really on it. I was still on the roads. No. But these 3 days I'm going to have to be on this route. 3 days of climbing up and over, and the Grand St Bernard Pass, which is Ben Nevis and half again. So it's about, over the 3 days, about 3,000 metres climbing. But I can't take the trailer. That's my logistics. The trailer is not going on the West Highland Way. It's just I had to work that out, and I did a couple of days beforehand. There's a train that could take you up to the first spot after the first day of walking. So the day before, I took the trailer up on the train, arranged to leave it in somebody's garage, and I went back down and I walked. The second day, they kidnapped the trailer and they took it up to the next stop, and then for the third day a taxi company took it to the top. And getting to the top of the Alps, it was a bit like what I said about going to London to Paris on a bike. It was way beyond any thoughts that I could do. And I made a little video at the top that I still use, and I couldn't recreate the emotion that I felt. I've done it. I did it. I've just climbed the Alps. This is, that was what I was saying. What I didn't know was that coming back off the Alps with 35 kilos behind you and a 6 foot, trying to overtake, that was the muscle aches that I had 2 or 3 days later from that day, coming back down. Yeah. But so the Alps was a big crescendo for me, and then the getting to Rome, and then the crescendo just went off the scale. But each country was different. Yeah. Different experience. The Italian experience was just socialising the whole way, because by that time I was in the system of Ostellos. The Italians assume that everybody's walking to Rome, and they have Ostellos, hostels the whole way. Okay, so you're meeting up with people a lot. So that was nice. A different experience as well.
Yeah. And so I suppose inevitably at some point you can see Rome in the distance. What was that like? You're 20 miles to go or 30 miles to go, whatever it was.
Yeah. What I knew by that time was I had friends coming over to be there, to be in Rome at the end. So that was exciting that I was there. I remember the final day of walking and thinking, it's like I've just had a job to do every day. Get up and go for a walk. Get up and go for another walk. And it was a simple life. I had lived a really simple life for 6 months. It was tough at times, but that was all I had to do. Just get up and go for a walk. And it was quite sad. And even, I think in Switzerland, somebody was saying, oh my goodness, you've only got 2 or 3 months left. And I was, I don't want it to finish. It was like I didn't really want it. It was a nice, simple life to have. So, but and I had no idea. I'd never been to Rome, so I had no idea what to expect. But I was just excited to get to the finish point, get to St. Peter's Square and meet up with my friends. So, so there was a mix of, excitement, but also a bit of sadness that it was nearly all over.
So, going back a wee bit through the journey, was the weather kind all the way, or was there sometimes you were in big storms?
I was never in big storms. Oh yeah, I was. I was once in a mad 10-minute thunderstorm where I just got
All right.
absolutely soaked, and
Yeah,
that
yeah.
was where I got. So that was after or just before the 1,000 mile mark at the back end of France. And a couple of days later, I got a matching pair of blisters. So that was the first blisters I got after 1,000 miles, and it was all
Yeah.
down to the fact that I stood in this bus stop, thinking, I'm soaked already. What's the point of changing my shoes? Because I'm only going to end up with two wet pairs of shoes, but I know that I'm chancing blisters. So, but
Aye.
I had three blisters in the whole 2,000 miles. So that wasn't a bad record over the piece. That was the only time I got properly soaked. The other, if you say good weather, so some people it's good weather. For me, it's the worst weather. It's the heat waves and the hot weather. So that wasn't the weather that I would have wanted. And I did have a couple of heat waves in England and then in France. And then one day in the start of the 34-degree heat wave, I walked 7 kilometres too far in the wrong direction. So that wasn't a good day either because, I was clearly dehydrated, a bit
Yeah.
I had nonsense on my phone. So there was tough days partly for the heat as well. But overall, it was 6 months of summer I had, really.
Yeah.
It was
Lovely.
never bad weather.
No, no. And you must have, people know I'm interested in diet and food and stuff. I'm a bit of a foodie myself. I love food. Go around all sorts of ways to enjoy cooking food. You must have had some great food, did you not? Was there some nice little
Yeah.
get-togethers, or people have you at their home or at their barbecue or something?
Well, no, I don't think I did randomly tip up at a drunken French barbecue lunchtime one day, and I managed to get myself out fairly compos mentis at the end of it. But but yeah, yes, people were feeding me. Pubs and cafes were, not always, and I never ever asked for any discounts, but often they would say, "You're walking to Rome, this is on the house." So, and I did in the UK actually. By North Yorkshire, I offloaded my camping cooking gear because I realised I wasn't really struggling to get food. And I could also I wasn't carrying a rucksack. Every little bit wasn't a big consideration for weight, the same way that it would be if you were carrying it. So I could just toss pot noodles and stuff. I kept a flask. I kept tea bags and dried milk because I need a cup of tea. And it meant if I had boiling water, I could always ask for boiling water from somebody. I could have the pot noodles, whatever, if I was camping as well. So I was fine in the UK. France was a bit more of a challenge. I did have my cooking gear back and I had to feed myself a lot more because France have got a whole... Well, they have every Sunday and Monday, all the shops, all the bakeries are shut. But also the bakeries have another day off. And usually that was the day after I had been camping the night before. And the bakery was shut that morning, so it became a bit more of a challenge. But whenever I did get food, it was glorious food. And then in Italy, I was fed with pasta and tomato sauce coming out of my ears because a lot of the ostellos feed you as well. So, but yeah, I never starved, and I always had biscuits and pot noodles and things like that in the trailer. So
good stuff. And so, did you have a budget? What about budgeting? Did you have a bunch of money in your pocket or cards, or did you allocate so much a day, or what about that?
Not really. As I say, that sort of September time when Lucy said, right, you're going to make a commitment to this. For those 6 months then, I worked pretty much full time in order to build up the finances for it, not knowing what the finances would be. And actually, as it turns out, I've not added it all up, but, as it turns out, with all the kindness that I was getting, it was a heck of a lot less than it would have been if I had been financing the whole lot. But that certainly, I always asked for, somewhere to camp, but I never once asked for discounts or anything for food. So, no, I didn't have a budget. And when you're in Europe, even in France, there was a few places, there's people, you go to the church or you go to the council at the end of the day, they had a list of names of people that could take you in for the night, and it would be a donation that you could leave, and you would get a shower and a bed, and they would feed you as well. So it was lots of, usually, through Google Translate, but it was lots of nice evenings then with families.
What do you think you spent on it? Personal expenditure. What do you think it might be roughly?
I don't know. The best way to gauge it is once I was in Italy, the Ostellos, what they have, a donation system, but some of them they would charge you as well. So it's
Okay.
somewhere between 20 and 35 euros a night, depending on
Okay.
whether you just got a bed and a toilet or you were getting fed. So even
Okay.
if you went on that sort of 35 euros, which is about £35 a
Yes.
night,
Yeah.
possibly over the whole course,
The
but
whole
obviously
the
I
whole
was
journey.
camping lots as
Yeah.
well,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
um, plus
And
plus food.
did you
But
presumably you slept well in your tent, or did you have rough nights?
I sleep well, full stop.
Brilliant.
So yeah, yeah, I've got no real issues as the camping, whatever. As long as I was able to pitch my tent, then I could just crawl in and
Yeah. Yeah.
I'd sleep.
Cool.
And then with the dorms in Italy, nobody else slept because I'm a professional snorer. But
I've heard the rumours. So, tell us a wee bit about Rome then, because there's quite a lot of stories in Rome as well, isn't there?
yeah,
There's some special
sorry,
stuff.
I'm
Tell us
waffling a
about.
lot here.
No, you're not waffling. It's wonderful. Tell us a bit about Rome, because I think some of
So
that's quite exciting.
yeah, it just went, if the whole thing was fantastic, then it just went exponential. I knew that my friends were coming to be there when I was finishing, and some of them actually arrived deliberately on the Friday so that they could walk with me on the Saturday morning, the last 2 or 3 miles, and then there was other ones in the square waiting. But about a month before I got to Rome, and my 94-year-old godfather, who's not a relation, but he was my dad's best friend, he has dementia, and he had been following, and his daughter, they were FaceTiming every couple of weeks and checking up where I was for him, and he's got dementia, but he goes from one extreme to the other, so he could be really quite tuned in and lucid.
Lucid, yeah.
But he had decided, he told them, I want to go to Rome when Geraldine gets to Rome, and they're thinking, well, how do we do this? So they sort of made it happen, and 5 of them came out. So that, and I walked into Rome on the Saturday. My friends were going to be there for the weekend, and they were going to arrive then on the Monday. And on top of that, Agnes, his daughter, had said, and we've managed to get tickets for you and Uncle Desmond to be in the general audience to see so they were coming on the Monday, and I was getting to go to the general audience with Uncle Desmond on the Wednesday. So I was just so excited. That was amazing, lovely that I was getting to do it, but the fact that Uncle Desmond was going to be there with me as well. So getting into Rome, they wrapped me in saltires when I arrived into the square with, it was all sort of celebrations. And there was a woman who had also contacted me. I didn't know this woman at all. About a month before, 2 or 3 weeks before, I'm going to be in Italy on holiday. I'll be following you, and I'd like to be there when you get to the end. And I gave her the details because I was going to be with my friends, so it didn't matter that this woman was going to be there as well. And it turns out that Ernestine is from Glasgow, but is fluent in Italian, German, and she actually was our amazing Italian tour guide for that weekend and got us. Because I had walked further than Canterbury to Rome, I had this little stamp passport that could get me past all the big queues. Well, Ernestine convinced the Swiss guards that this was good for 7 of us to get past all the queues. So she was there, so we had a whole experience with Ernestine, which was incredible. But then on the Tuesday afternoon, the others were down at the Trevi Fountain, and I said, well, I'll go. You go on the Tuesday afternoon with this email that Agnes had to go and collect my tickets for the Wednesday for us to the audience. And by this time, I had another email from my parish priest, and it was exactly the same email that Agnes. So I said, Agnes, this is great. We've got 3 tickets now. You could come with us. Yeah. So I went. You go up to the brass door in the Vatican to get your official tickets for the following day. And when I did that, everybody else around me was getting handed these blue tickets, and I was handed a yellow one. And I said, well, why have I got a yellow one? And this Swiss guard is, English is a second language. And he said, you've been presented to Pope Francis.
Oh, my goodness.
And it was just incredible. But then my next thing was, but what about Uncle Desmond? I can't say, well, you could go to the general audience, but I'm off to. And so I said, that's amazing. I said, but what about Uncle Desmond? And he said, is he in a wheelchair? And I said, well, yeah, we've hired a wheelchair for him for the weekend. So he said, that's fine. He said, he can come with you. So I discovered on a Tuesday afternoon that I'm getting to meet Pope Francis tomorrow morning at the. It's just unreal,
Surreal.
really. And what that had been was my parish priest and the Archbishop of Glasgow had arranged this. And they had sent me this email, but I didn't clock. I mean, the only difference on it, I think my name was on it, there was a number, but I didn't even notice that. They realised that I didn't catch on to it, because I went back and said, thank you very much, that's amazing, we've got an extra ticket, so he just said nothing. But yeah, so the following day, we were staying in different places, met Agnes, and I said to Agnes, I've got my ticket, Uncle Desmond is allowed to come with me, but somebody needs to push a chair. Just you hang on to the chair. So she got to come with us, which and Uncle Desmond, with his dementia, he knew that he was going to the audience. He knew he was going to the service with the Pope. But what he then, we were sitting up there, and he said, is the Pope just going to be there? Just, about 5 or 10 rows in front of us. And I said, yeah. I said, and afterwards he's coming round to say hello to you. And I was already in tears anyway.
Yes,
and he burst out and he said, this is amazing. He said, I'm so privileged that I've got to live to 94 long enough to be here today. He said, what would Pat and Agnes be saying? And of course that just set me off, because I said, well, you're representing Pat and Agnes, So it was just such a lovely, incredible experience. Yeah, so everything else, I'm so pleased that I didn't know about it, because I would have forgotten about all the incredible things that happened on this trip. But that was just the tin lid. Real amazing.
Oh, amazing. Mm-hmm. And since that, you've talked to lots of people. You've talked to groups.
Yeah.
Inspiring people. I mean, have you enjoyed that part of it as well? Being invited to speak and so on.
Yeah, I have. I mean, I came back and I thought, well, I need to talk about this. I need to tell folk. So I did arrange one night in the hall just down the road, and that was it. I planned that first night, tell folk about it, show them some photos. It was amazing, and that was it. I never thought much more of it. But then I started to get contacts from people saying, will you come and speak here? Will you come? And that was the first one I organised in February 2024. I haven't organised any other talks since. No. I've done 43.
Wow.
So it's just, and I've got a 2026 diary now, and I've got dates in throughout next year. So it's
fantastic.
Just, people are interested.
Of course. And I know, because we sat around a campfire with you, not on a trip to Rome, but the group was encouraging to write the book. Have you made any progress in the book?
I have. I'm in Italy now. It took me a long time to get out of France. It took me a heck of a long time. It was easier. It wasn't easy to walk over the Alps, but it was easier to walk over the Alps than it was to write about walking over the Alps, because I realised that I'd hardly taken any, because I was so focused on this climbing this hill and stopping and getting breath that I really didn't have an awful lot of photos and videos to work from. But so now I'm in Italy, but I'm not in Rome yet, but I am making progress.
Fantastic. I can't wait for that book.
Yeah.
Well, Geraldine, absolutely amazing. But one of the things you helped me with this past year was, I had this mad idea. I just came in like, I don't quite walk into Rome, but this mad idea to go camping in the countryside and do a bit of a retreat thing. Before I knew where I was guided to offer it to other people, and you showed up to recommend a campsite, which now we know about it was just amazing. And but of course, when you first mentioned it, I'm thinking, well, I was thinking of going somewhere else in the country. Why would I go to Lincolnshire? But you convinced me, and then you showed up at the actual retreat as well, which was a great blessing for everyone. So I want to thank you for that. And there are people already interested in doing it next year, and I definitely will do it next year. So why that particular campsite? How did you get involved with them? Because it's an amazing place, isn't it?
Yeah, so that is Dave Cordwaite that I talked about right at the outset.
Yeah,
That him and his wife Emma, who they with Dave has been sort of couch surfing for years when he was doing all his adventures, but
yeah,
by sort of 2017, 18, they were on a houseboat in London, and then they, as a group, the S Tribe, we
yeah,
purchased a double decker bus and converted it into. So they had a rented sort of campsite area down in the south coast of England.
yeah,
This was their dream, both of them, to have a campsite, an eco campsite. This double decker bus that could be used as workspace and camping.
yeah.
And they got this piece of land in Lincolnshire. And Emma, his wife, her dream has always been alpacas. So they've now got a fleet,
Yeah.
about I think it's about a dozen now because they've just
Yeah,
had
they
some
have.
more
Yeah.
babies. But they've got alpacas and they've got chickens. But it's an incredible sight. I mean, if I say the middle of nowhere, that's not a negative thing, but it is kind of in the middle of nowhere in Lincolnshire. But you can get there reasonably well by
Yeah, yeah.
public transport. But they've also got a double decker bus. It's all eco, so the toilets are all composted toilets, and even the shower, the warm water for the showers, is heated by the sun. Just they've got compost that can heat the water, and that heats it. So it's a really nice eco campsite, but just. Well, you know that yourself now. It's just chill. And when you put up a video saying, I want to go and I'm just going to have 3 days of silence, maybe to
Yeah.
myself, maybe other people,
Yeah.
where should I go?
Yeah.
I just
Yeah.
thought, well, I have to recommend it. And then when you said I'm doing it, I thought, well, I have to go then. And my friends thought it was hilarious that I was going on a silence retreat. You could just tell that. How does that work? But it's an innate, they've got the woodland as well, so it's not just the
Yeah.
campsite. There's a woodland, and that was where we spent our evenings in
Yes.
the woods, shrouded by the trees. It is a lovely. I'm there as much as I can be.
fantastic.
Lovely sight.
I can't thank you enough for the recommendation because it turned out to be just perfect. And you've also booked for the island. You're coming to the island in Iona.
Yeah.
I'm really
Yeah.
grateful for that.
Well, that's off the back of that trip. There's such a lovely group, and I know that anybody that's going to go to a MindStores type thing
Yeah.
is
Nice
you know
people.
sort of a lovely group. But I have sailed up that way, and I've sailed and stopped, but not spent any time in Iona. So and again, it's a place that Mum and Dad would have enjoyed to go to as well. So that was that and the island, and maybe re-inject some MindStore back into routine. And but yeah, I'm looking forward to the island, and I'm pleased that you're going back to Big Sky.
Yeah, we'll definitely do it.
It's a great place anytime, but for that as well.
Fantastic. So we're coming more or less to the end of our time. Is there anything you would think you might want to share with people in terms of getting out their comfort zones and being an adventurer? Anything you think you could help people with?
Well, I mean, I think the sort of the lessons learned really for me. I mean, don't be thinking, and you'll know from the book when I finally ever finish it, that I'm not a super fit person by any stretch of the imagination. In fact, I've been the opposite. So it's not about being fit or being able. It's just about giving it a go. Really, and particularly the Alps, but the whole thing, I realised that the only person that didn't really think that I could do this was me.
Aye.
And certainly my friends were saying, you'll manage the Alps, you'll do it. I can't do it, I can't. So you are, I realise, more capable than you give yourself credit for. And that's not just a physical thing, but, if you want to change something or go do a new hobby or whatever, give it a go. You might actually discover that you can do it. The kindness, I think that's a big lesson, that the world is a horrible, scary place, and we all know that at times. But my experience was entirely of kindness. Everybody I met was kind. So it's good to realise that people are there, they want to help, but they're not all horrible. But also it's a good reminder to us to take the opportunity to be kind if you get the chance. And obviously I was raising funds for Mary's Meals and Dementia UK. And I'm still doing that through the talks. So helping feed children at school and, dementia, families with dementia.
I suppose the other thing is, have you got a way of people connecting to you in case someone's thinking, oh, I'd love to have Jed speak at my group, or whatever.
Absolutely.
Can we put that in the notes at the bottom or something?
Please put the details on. I'm
Yeah,
happy to. I'm now just sort of whenever anybody contacted me now, I'm putting them off till next year so that I can hopefully maybe finish this book.
Finish the
but
book,
absolutely, yes, I'll be happy to talk.
Fantastic.
Definitely, you can tell that I can. Sort of stopping me talking, but answering questions, I think that's what I enjoy about it. And yeah.
Well, you know what? You're just amazing. The idea of a woman from Glasgow stepping outside her front door and walking to Rome still blows me away. It's just unbelievable.
As I say, I was 6 feet tall when I left Glasgow. Be worn down.
Yeah. So, well, the first thing I'm going to say, Jed, I'm really looking forward to seeing you again on the island. I mean, might see you before that, you never know, but
yeah,
can't wait to do that. And our little groups keeps in touch, as you know, with one another, and you've been a big part of the dynamic of that. And for everybody who got to that first retreat and any subsequent ones, we owe a lot of that to you. So I want to thank you for that. But most of all, I want to thank you for giving us your time today and just sharing this awesome story. You're amazing, and I think it's wonderful that you were rewarded by with your uncle being there with you to meet the Pope. That's just extraordinary, unbelievable.
Yeah.
So, as I would like to say, God bless you and all the best. So thanks.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Cheers now. Bye-bye.
Cheers. Bye.